Welcome to this edition of Northwest Newsweek. 10 years after getting their land back, Bingwi Niashi Anishinaabeg, formerly known as Sandpoint First Nation, is well on its way to becoming a fully formed community. On Tuesday, band members were joined by Minister of Health and Area MP Patty Haidu for the grand opening of its new health center. But as Adam Riley reports, this is just the first of many steps.
Since being elected as chief in 2017, Joe Ladouceur has been driven by one plan: build a community for his people. On Tuesday, a big component of that plan was officially unveiled: the Bingwi Niashi Anishinaabeg Health Center. The community located between Rocky Bay First Nation and Beardmore already has an industrial sector with a small sawmill. And Ladouceur says with a growing band membership, this was the next logical step.
It's always been a dream to build a health center to give my membership an opportunity, because I knew that I was going to start building homes and having people living on the land, and I think this had to be a big part of it.
Ladouceur was joined for the grand opening by Thunder Bay Superior North MP and Minister of Health Patty Haidu, who toured the facility that includes an exam room and space for medical staff to live in for an extended stay. Haidu says health centers like this are integral for the success of a community.
We know that people can't stay in communities, especially communities that are more remote, like VNA, unless they have access to some basic medical care. So a clinic like this allows for that routine care. It can also allow for urgent care. If someone is feeling ill, they know that they have a place to go, and they can also then attract people to come in to provide specialized care.
The $334,000 in funding required for the design and construction of the project was provided by Indigenous Services Canada. Haidu was also given a tour of the rest of the community, which includes an improved access road and several completed homes and others that are nearing completion.
We needed to make sure that people were safe coming on the roads. That was one of the big factors, and the health center was all fit into those things. And right now I'm in the process of building 3 single dwelling homes, brand new homes, on lakefront properties overlooking the lake, and I think that's something that the membership is going to really enjoy and love.
Ladouceur says the community has experienced a lot of hurt over the years. During the 1990s, their land was expropriated from them by the government to make way for a provincial park and was only returned to the First Nation in 2010. He believes with the new health center and the residential lots being built in the community, they can finally start a new chapter a decade later. Adam Riley, TBT News.
This week, new federal Conservative leader Erin O'Toole chose who will sit in his shadow cabinet, and it will feature representation from Northwestern Ontario. Kenora MP Eric Malello has been tapped to serve as shadow minister for Northern Affairs in Fednor. First elected in 2019, Malello defeated incumbent Bob Null to become one of the youngest members of Parliament. During the Conservative leadership race, Malello backed O'Toole. He says he wasn't expecting a position within the shadow cabinet, but he looks forward to the role, adding there won't be much of a change from his usual duties as MP.
A lot of the issues I will be advocating for in the shadow cabinet capacity will be very similar to the concerns that I've been advocating for already and will continue to advocate for our region, especially when we talk about the northern economy. Northern economy in the Kenora riding is very similar to the northern economy across Canada in the resources we have, and a lot of the ecotourism, as it's called, it's been a growing industry, and a lot of the same social issues as well, whether it's food insecurity or just a higher cost of living.
Malello previously served as Deputy Shadow Minister of Diversity, Inclusion and Youth and Deputy Shadow Minister of Economic Development Initiative for Northern Ontario. And while Thunder Bay is sitting at 0 active cases of COVID-19 as of Friday, some provinces have seen cases spike and concerns about a possible second wave are ramping up. On Tuesday, the Ford government announced it's taking a month-long pause in further reopenings because of the recent upward trend of COVID-19 cases. British Columbia logged 429 new cases from last Friday to Wednesday, causing Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry to order nightclubs and banquet halls to close. She cites those facilities as a major source of COVID transmission. Federal Health Minister Patty Haidu is applauding provinces for taking action because it's clear this virus is persistent.
I I think it's wise that provinces and territories are looking at their numbers and trying to figure out exactly where the risk of infection is and trying to take steps to slow things down or to address changes in policies that might reduce some of the infections. In BC, they do know it's larger gatherings. They know it's nightclubs. They know it's people gathering together, and so it makes sense. In Ontario, again, as they proceed with trying to understand where these infections are happening, hopefully they'll take action that's strong and that actually sends a message to Canadians that we're not out of this yet.
The Thunder Bay Regional Hospital continues to work through a backlog of 4,000 surgeries. In the early stages of the pandemic, local officials had to halt all non-emergency surgeries, and now the hospital will soon be ramping up its capacity so they can put a dent in that backlog. Troy Charles has details.
Across Ontario, there's about a 150,000 surgery backlog in provincial hospitals, a number that grew exponentially with the onset of COVID-19. Dr. Stuart Kennedy says Thunder Bay Regional is actually well ahead of the curve. In pre-COVID times, Kennedy estimated the hospital has about 3,000 surgical patients on its waitlist at any given time, and at this point, the hospital has 4,000 surgical cases waiting for surgery. Kennedy spoke on the hospital's plan to work through the backlog.
But we're increasing our capacity to 100% in mid-September, and then by early October, we're going up to 120% capacity in this hospital to deal with our backlog. And we should be able to deal with our backlog in the next 9 to 12 months, and that's probably ahead of most centres in Ontario.
To increase capacity at the hospital, Kennedy said it means running the surgical department 7 days a week, with surgeries being performed during the day, in the evening, and on weekends. As far as deciding what order surgeries get completed in and making sure it's done fairly, Kennedy had this to say.
We have to be fair to all types of surgery to make sure, because there's pain and suffering goes on with ear, nose, and throat, with gynecological surgery, with orthopedic surgery. So we need a fair distribution amongst physicians and amongst surgical types to make sure we have a fair allocation, because we only have so much OR time. So that's determined by a group of experts and nurses as well as physicians get together and decide what surgery is a priority from their specialty at this point in time to move forward.
There are currently no active COVID cases in the Thunder Bay district, giving Kennedy reassurance that it's the right time to clear as many surgeries off the books as possible. Kennedy cautioned that the ambitious surgery clearance goal is only attainable if the hospital doesn't get overwhelmed with COVID-19 cases. Troy Charles, TBT News.
Marathon and White River OPP had their hands full early Wednesday morning with a report of a fire and train derailment west of White River. When officers arrived around 3 o'clock, they found the train was still on the tracks, but one of the cars carrying wood products was on fire. Fire crews with both the White River Fire Department and the Ministry of Natural Resources were able to extinguish the fire, and rail crews moved the unaffected rail cars to another location. Officials with Environment Canada are releasing more details about that severe weather system that hit parts of the region last Sunday afternoon. In Dryden, strong winds tore the roof off the Dingwall Medical Clinic. Meteorologist Gerald Chang says wind gusts of 70 kilometers per hour were recorded at the Dryden Airport last Sunday. No one was hurt and the facility was back open Tuesday. The weather system also brought large marble-sized hail to many areas around Thunder Bay. It didn't appear to cause any widespread damage, at least none that was reported to the weather office. Chang says the city also saw 45 millimeters of rain, including 32 millimeters in just 1 hour at around 3 o'clock. The downpour caused flooding along the James Street Railway underpass and also caused bubbling at the new artificial turf sports field at St. Patrick High School. Many communities along the North Shore of Lake Superior have seen the benefits of having a major infrastructure project come together. In addition to training and employment, the communities are able to apply for grants to assist on various projects. Last week, Dorian received some of that financial support. Adam Riley has details.
For the second year in a row, the Township of Dorian has received money from NextBridge's Community Fund, which assists communities located along the route of the east-west tie. A $767 million transmission line that, when complete, will provide an extra 230 kilovolts of electrical load from Shunya to Wawa. Dorian received $2,500, which Reeve Robert Beatty says will be used to purchase chairs for the community center and PPE for the fire department. To some, this might seem like a small amount of money, but Beatty says financial assistance like this goes a long way in a small community.
With COVID-19, PPE was a priority for our fire department, and with this grant, we were able to supply our fire department with the latest PPE. Any funding of this nature for a small community like ourselves is a great support.
The donation was part of a tour by Project Director Jennifer Tidmarsh, who was in White River earlier this month to celebrate the groundbreaking of the new work camp in that community, as well as a site tour of the Nipigon camp located on the Lake Helen First Nation.
Red Rock Chief and Council came with us. We went through and we provided a check for them for trapper compensation for their young people so that they can start learning the trapping ways. But we did that while we were doing a tour of the camp so that they could feel comfortable that the camp is right next to the reserve and that there's proper security and proper PPE and that we're adhering to all the things we said we would do.
Construction is progressing well despite the challenges that COVID-19 has created, with towers erected across the North Shore and the installation of the physical power lines currently underway in several sections. The project is expected to be completed by the fourth quarter of 2021. Adam Riley, TBT News.
When we come back, students at Confederation College start a new school year in a COVID-19 world. Hundreds of students at Confederation College were back in the classroom Wednesday. The college is following a hybrid model as only students requiring practical programming will be inside the building, while the majority of schoolwork is done online. Avery McCrae has more.
It wasn't your average first day of classes for the few Confederation College students who were in the classroom for the first time this year. Students must sign in and out of the building each day and must follow walking guidelines when in the school. Only 32 of the over 150 programs, including paramedics and shop courses, will see students at the school for some in-person learning, with all theory work being done online. While some students still aren't ready to be in class, paramedic student Kyla Kilshiski had no reservations herself.
No, not really, just because I really love the school and I love this program, and I know that Rob and Tanis are going to be there for me, and they'll make sure that everyone is successful this year.
I thought that the college was going to be closed for this full year, but when I heard in late August that it was open still, I jumped on applying because why wait?
There was a little bit of apprehension, but as students got more and more used to what was going on in our world through COVID, I think the reality of education maybe possibly changing slightly did come into play. Students did want to come to school. They do want to continue on with their career aspirations after graduating from college.
Cook says the hybrid model was the only way the school could safeguard the community, students, and staff. He says the model allows the school to better space out those who require practical learning, as multiple classrooms can be used to social distance students in one course. While the majority of courses are strictly online, some still require hands-on learning.
It's necessary. Like I wouldn't be able to learn how to change a tire from a book without doing it. You know what I mean? Like you have to be able to do and practice doing to be able to succeed and learn from that.
Everyone's super motivated this year. Everyone's super pumped to be in the classroom learning hands-on. Just they know that we're super fortunate to be actually in class and learning hands-on. So I think that motivates them a little bit more to push that extra mile.
The school is hoping to increase the in-class learning in the next semester, but Cook says it will depend on the global state of the COVID-19 pandemic. Avery McCrae, TBT News.
Food banks across the Northwest are getting ready for a rise in demand. The Canada Emergency Response Benefit helped many families during the pandemic, but with the CERB scheduled to end in just a few weeks, food banks are expecting a big jump in clientele. The timing is worrisome as well for volunteers, as the upcoming holiday season is already their busiest time of year. Avery McCrae has more.
The RFDA is the umbrella organization for food banks in the Northwest who kept up with the demand during the pandemic. Officials had to change how they service their communities, adapting to a drive-through style in Thunder Bay to follow health guidelines. Executive Director Volker Krom knows in the Northwest the winter is quickly approaching, and they will have to find new ways to service the region.
We were able, during the weather, to have outdoor food banks and outdoor service. Now we have to move back in. It may come as a surprise, but in Northwestern Ontario, having an outdoor food bank doesn't work. So we're going to be looking at ways and servicing our clients back indoors, which means some modification to food banks, protective volunteers, training, a lot of things happening.
Another change happening is the government's CERB program is set to end after this month. CERB helped hundreds of thousands of Canadians during the height of the pandemic, with the food banks actually seeing less demand than normal. With the payment no longer coming, food banks expect to be busy once again.
I think we're going to be back into the really high numbers, and I don't know how we're going to do that. So we're nervous because the giving season is critical for our survival.
The giving season is the food bank's busiest time of year, which begins in late September with Thanksgiving in October. Krom says many in the region were giving more than normal to help during the pandemic's peak, but he's nervous those same groups won't have anything left to give for the holidays.
We're very pleased to see that donors were giving so freely during when the COVID hit, but that always tells us a harbinger of what's going to happen in the future. So I don't know if we can count that. We hope they will stand with us and support those individuals that can't. But we are afraid, and without them, both food and money, we're going to be in trouble.
Regular holiday food drives have been canceled due to the pandemic, with some companies opting for internal food drives among staff. Krom urges all businesses to do the same to help ensure vulnerable populations are taken care of going forward. Avery McCrae, TBT News.
At a special council meeting this week in Greenstone, members were able to meet with their new integrity commissioner. Legislation passed in recent years by the province requires municipalities to have an integrity commissioner to investigate members and provide advice to avoid any potential conflicts of interest. Mayor Reynold Beaulieu says there has been some confusion over when there is and isn't a conflict, and Wednesday's meeting helped clear the air.
Volunteerism. You're a volunteer, and you're paying a membership to be member of the golf club or the seniors club. You have to be declaring a conflict if it comes to money or anything that has value to it. And for us as councillors and mayor, it's sometimes you want to do your job, and if you're not doing your job by voting or bringing it up, people think you're not doing your job, that you're sitting on the fence, but it's not that.
Beaulieu stresses that he wants the municipality to be as transparent as possible with the public. Grand Council Treaty Number 3 is expanding the number of councils it has. In a release, the organization says while it has councils that represent men, women, youth, and elders, it says there's one group that is not represented, the LGBTQ2S community. The release states this fifth council is necessary to ensure that every citizen of the Anishinaabe Nation feels that they can see themselves and their experiences within the nation's governance. Selection for members of the new council will be held during the next Chief in Assembly. Coming up after the break, reconstruction of the dock at Silver Islet is complete, which has residents and those who advocated for the project excited at what the future will bring. People boating through the National Marine Conservation Area along the north shore of Lake Superior have a brand new launch point at the western end. Construction recently wrapped up on a new multi-million-dollar dock in the small lakeside hamlet of Silver Islet. As Adam Riley reports, even though the summer season is coming to an end, the opportunities the dock now provides are endless.
What they've done here is fabulous.
$3 million, years of planning, and 7 months of construction has the president of the Silver Islet Harbor Association, Scott Cheadle, beaming with pride over the lakeside community's new harbor. He says many of the issues they had with the former dock, which was condemned in 2013, have been corrected.
They added rock at the southwest end to keep waves from crashing over the dock and washing along. The old timber wharf was not sheet piled, so waves could come right through under the wharf into the interior of the harbor. Also, the break wall behind me was quite broken down. Over the years, ice had simply plucked the rocks off.
Cheadle notes the boat launch was also improved, which will allow for even more boaters to launch in the spring. He adds he is thankful for the advocacy on the project from Thunder Bay Superior North MP Patty Haidu, who toured the completed project on Tuesday. She says the dock plays an important role in both tourism and safety.
We will have tourism again, but also part of the comfort of living in Northern Ontario. We know that there's a lot of boaters in our region, and this provides that safety of coming into Silver Islet to harbor, especially when the lake is so unpredictable.
Cheadle agrees with Haidu's assessment and notes the dock is used by the Canadian Coast Guard Auxiliary as a staging area, and should a forest fire in Sleeping Giant Provincial Park shut down road access, the harbor would be their only avenue of escape. Part of the deal in the project will have the Harbor Association take over ownership of the dock, meaning they will have to provide upkeep. Cheadle says they are already formulating a method of raising capital for that.
We expect to have at least 25 to 30 full-time slip rentals when we fully develop a marina within the harbor. And then the transient traffic, boats coming and going in season, it would be nothing to have half a dozen or 10 boats in here on any given day.
But due to a 7-week hiatus as a result of COVID-19, the dock wasn't completed in time to fully capitalize on the 2020 boating season. But Cheadle says they will take the time over the winter to prepare for the potential that 2021 will offer. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Patty Haidu is looking for politically engaged people between 15 and 22 to help advise on policy and other important issues. Earlier this month, Haidu opened applications for her Youth Advisory Council, chance for individuals between 15 and 22 to provide regular input on the issues facing them and their communities. Haidu has run a youth council since she was first elected in 2015. She says it's a valuable learning experience.
In the past, we've worked on projects. This year, of course, there's a plan going forward, but we're always open to hearing what young people want to do as well. We've done things from advising me on policy moving forward, looking at the plans of the government, proposing platform ideas, for example, in years past, but also projects that improve the quality of life here in Thunder Bay. So, for example, one year, Youth Council did a food drive and actually delivered that food to the Dewdrop Inn, as you know, a community organization in my riding that feeds people in need.
Applications can be found on Haidu's website, with September 25th being the deadline to submit the entry. And a group of mayors from Ontario border cities say they're in favor of a closed Canada-U.S. border until 2021, and Thunder Bay Mayor Bill Morrow is in agreement. Thunder Bay was not included in the group's online video call with Federal Public Safety Minister Bill Blair, but with the closeness of the Pigeon River border, Morrow says he was interested in what was said. The group included mayors from Sarnia, Windsor, and other parts of southern Ontario, some who favor the continuation of month-long closures. Morrow understands the economic implications, but that doesn't sway his opinion.
For me, the imperative has always been healthcare. As a community, we can be proud of what we've done to this point. Opening borders could really dramatically change that in a very short period of time. So from my perspective, I can't imagine how anyone would really be considering reopening borders at this time.
The mayors of border towns Fort Frances and Rainy River were also not a part of the latest meeting, but were involved with previous talks on the matter. June Call and Deb Ewald are both in favor of the border remaining closed for the rest of the year. And that's all for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.